Welcome back to Media7, where I'm talking about kids TV with Juliet Jensen, Luke Nola, Jeff Leland and Jonathan King. As I noted at the beginning of the show, the fact of children watching TV at all has become controversial. Jose Barbosa looks at the modern viewing choices of children and the moral choices of their parents.
Back in the old days, no one gave a toss about kids. We pretty much used them as slave labour in organ farms. Nowadays, though, our children are rightly considered precious proto-adults who need to be nurtured so they don't grow up to be axe-murderers or Bridge Corp executives. These days, every part of a child's environment comes under scrutiny, particularly the kind of media they're exposed to. And one medium has consistently been singled out as having an adverse effect on children. I'm talking about TV. Unless you think the kids are all on the Twitter nowadays, it's worth noting that according to a global survey undertaken in 2007, 59% of under 15-year-olds prefer to watch TV than fiddle with a computer. That there are concerns about what TV does to kids shouldn't be such a surprise, because as we know, media can affect children in profound ways.
Who are you? An angel.
What's your name?
Satan.
When I was 9, I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind with my mum. I had problems getting to sleep for a year after that, terrified that I'd be abducted by aliens and forced to live on a spaceship with Richard Dreyfuss. And in the 80s, a combination of veteran actor Bill Johnson's formidable Gurn and slug creatures in a TV adaptation of Under the Mountain kept kids off Auckland's volcanic cones for at least a decade. Leaving aside terrifying TV, there's also the argument that preteen advertising is turning kids into mindless consumers before they've had a chance to develop into adults. Last year, the major broadcasters voluntarily agreed to follow government guidelines restricting what could be advertised during certain parts of the day. That was seen as part of the fight against obesity. But it's not just Boomba Loomba syndrome that TV's apparently responsible for. The list is a long one.
Obesity, tobacco use, sexual behaviour, drug use, alcohol use, low academic achievement, ADHD.
There's the fear that TV's forcing kids to grow up too fast.
Half the people are in Hollywood are either on drugs or they have been.
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Normally I watch A channel and MTV, and they have quite a lot on there.
In the UK, psychologist Eric Sigman reckoned excessive TV watching could be linked to 15 major health problems, including eyesight problems, hormonal changes and even autism. And in Australia, there was even talk of banning under-2s from watching TV.
TV exposure too early could stunt language development and shorten attention span.
There seems to be confusion over how TV really affects a child's development. Is it the content of kids' TV that makes the biggest impact, or is it the immersive switch-your-brain-off nature of TV that makes it so dangerous? And should parents be made to feel guilty about plonking their kids in front of the box for a few minutes of peace?
Jose Barbosa there. Jeff, if we could go to you, you've studied these things. Should we be worried about stunting our children's development by letting them watch television?
A few contestable things in that report. Basically, I don't think television and children is about psychology, it's about sociology. It's a sociological relationship, it's not a psychological relationship. And I also asked, why the hell we've had nearly, next year, 50 years of television in New Zealand. Why are we starting to worry about this all again? You know, what's so different about 2-year-olds in 2009 as against when we were 2-year-olds or when our children were 2-year-olds? Why is this come around again like clockwork?
It didn't have meaning, huh?
No, I don't. I mean, it's not that. It's just, it just is a climate so enormously different in terms of a life of a 2-year-old and the life of television that somehow it's a cause for alarm.
Do you think it comes around like clockwork, or do we worry more these days?
Well, there's a whole thing. You know, you want the best for your child. So when you have a child, you start to notice things like television before you didn't really pay much attention, and the relationship with your child. So I think there's a preying on general anxiety of parents. I think there's a whole lot of nonsense being talked to, and that Eric Sigmund in particular is a horror.
Eric Sigmund is the source of the Facebook gives you cancer story.
Yes, I'd like to see him do some research rather than call on secondary research to base some of his claims. And the whole thing is you have to think of media environments, not television anymore. It's like television's part of a whole range of media possibilities.
Jonathan, as Jose noted in that piece, Under the Mountain, the TV series, it was scary. I mean, there's one clip of Under the Mountain on YouTube, and this is a representative comment. This used to scare the shit out of me when I was about 8 years old, and they're all like that. It's kind of interesting. Did you feel making the movie, though you're making the movie of the book, that you had to keep that scariness in there?
We absolutely did, yeah, because that's probably the key thing that a whole generation of people remember about it. And so we felt our job was to deliver a scary movie, really. And even to the extent that we've made the kids in the film a little bit older than they are in the book and I think the TV series, so that perhaps hopefully the audience is a little older and the scares can be a little bit more intense. And that's partly, I guess, just to make sure that we're totally delivering that, and also as a reaction to how scary things like Harry Potter are now, and Lord of the Rings and things like that.
So you think that the bar has been raised a little bit? It's not just, I mean, because we all used to watch Doctor Who on the TV and hide behind the couch. It's the cliche, isn't it?
Yeah,
I did that.
The bar has been raised, I guess, in terms of I guess what those scares are, and also how they're told. You look at the Under the Mountain clip or Doctor Who, and a bit of kind of cold spaghetti on the face did fine for a scary monster, and I think kids' audiences are a bit more sophisticated now than they.
I mean, we're getting, I don't know what you expect in terms of the reception for your film, but Where the Wild Things Are, the Spike Jonze movie, is out now, and there's already a controversy about that being too dark and scary for kids. But I think Maurice Sendak has come out and said, well, yeah, deal with it. The book's scary.
Yeah. Well, 30 years ago, people said exactly the same thing about the book, and but I think kids don't make those judgments. I know kids. I think I know kids that have been scared of the book, and I know one small boy who was absolutely terrified of Scarface Claw in Harry McCleary. But that doesn't mean that you should you should ban those things. I think kids can make their own judgments about whether they want to be immersed in something like that, and parents have to be involved in those judgments too.
Yeah. I once taught a course called Fantasy Literature, and I taught Alice in Wonderland as a horror story, because it's all about losing control of the body and transforming into unexpected shapes, and who are all these weird people and creatures. So essentially it's a horror story if you want to view it that way, but there's a much prized children's classic too.
So how do you deal with that in the safe environment of TVNZ6, where you're promising parents you're not going to terrify their children, or are you saying that?
Well, I think picking up on what Jonathan said, different kids have different perceptions of what is scary, and we have to be real about life. Some things in life don't go as we want them to, or are scary or whatever, but there are some accepted standards that we hold by. There's obviously broadcasting standards, and you can't have too much horror and that kind of thing, and there's a level within preschool programming where what we're really trying to do is educate and entertain in a secondary way. We don't want to scare or we don't want to provide a heightened sense of anxiety and have parents not want their children to be watching that. So we are really careful to make sure that that happens. But most preschool content that's made around the world adheres to those standards, so it's not exactly a problem.
I suppose it's after preschool and what kids want to watch after that, because they'll be watching things like The Simpsons, which is an adult show as well as a children's show. I was at the Armageddon show on Sunday for the Robot Chicken panel. That's absolutely adult television, even though it's animation, and yet there were 10-year-olds there asking questions. I wonder whether kids actually, there's some aspirational thing there that they do want to watch something that's a bit more adult and knowing.
I think kids are a bit more grown up than I was when I was that age. I got out a puppet movie for my kids, Team America, and we're watching it, and halfway through, this puppy goes, "Daddy, I don't think this is quite appropriate. Mum wouldn't approve." We go to bed. They put themselves to bed.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry too much though, because research shows that children are still mostly watching television aimed at children. So it's not, we don't have to have this massive moral panic and think everyone's only watching The Simpsons. The ratings show that 5 to 14-year-olds do mainly watch television that is aimed at them. So, you know, let's not go crazy.
Yeah. The research shows there's high levels of self-censorship amongst children too. The Australian Broadcasting Authority did a report in the 1990s and it was titled Cool or Gross, and that was the primary response of those children to violence and sex and whatever. It was either something was cool or something was gross. That's a distinction they made.
I saw that in my own kids as they were growing up. When they didn't like something, they actually had the confidence to go away. And I wonder whether that's related to a greater sense of control over the media, because, I mean, my kids have had something I never had as a kiddie TV viewer, is the ability to copy and repeat. There's always been a video recorder in the house. How do you think that changes things?
Well, they're certainly much more adept at it than a lot of adults. I mean, I had a visitor last night who didn't have children. He kept saying, gee, great to have a child around, help you all the time. You know, I was calling on Catherine Rose all the time. I mean, there's a problem here, you know, this is not working. And then she, straight at it. Yeah.
I just saw some research out of the States that showed that, you know, the majority of television watched is still live, but obviously children, well not obviously, but children watch a lot more via, you know, a PVR or MySky, whatever you want to call it, than adults do. So obviously that technology is there for them to filter what they want to watch. But you know, in New Zealand that's still catching on.
Can I say one thing? As someone who makes dramatic stories, one thing that I'd kind of be worried that's lost as we have less drama, for example, on TV, is the way a dramatic narrative can kind of pick you up and take you on a journey that's shaped by the makers, that scares you and excites you, and then hopefully delivers you back somewhere safe at the end. And you know, for kids' product, I think it's important that the storytellers do shape the experience properly to give kids a safe experience. But you know, I think it's a pity that the shape of that kind of storytelling gets lost, and you know, without sounding like an old fuddy-duddy, you know, without stories that you have to concentrate on for a certain amount of time, you know, perhaps that ability to digest that kind of story gets lost, and you know, TV now, and then you see it in things like YouTube, becomes more about clips that have stuff going on, you know, that you can kind of dip into and walk away from at any time.
I think the challenge though is for children's drama is you know, funding it, but also with all television, maybe drama especially, is to keep it within a multi-platform, or to make it a multi-platform experience for children. Therefore, they can have that full story, plus they can have all their add-ons. So I think that's the challenge maybe for all children's television, is to make sure that it's relevant for kids and it's everywhere they need it to be, and so that television isn't seen as being archaic and old and boring, but it does fulfil their needs.
And don't be fooled, although we produce a reality show, it's quite scripted, and we actually control the ups and downs and the mistakes and the explosions and the scary stuff that happens is quite controlled, and I think kids want to be surprised and have that journey. You're quite right, and even though we're making reality, we need to do that as well as producers.
I mean, Jonathan, you'd know as well as anyone else that some of the great storytelling of our age in movies is being done in what are apparently kids' films, you know, the Pixar movies. Is there did you feel a pressure to make a kidult movie rather than a movie for kids?
I think, well, particularly, I guess, like I said, pushing it slightly older than the TV series and the book perhaps had. And then we wanted to bring in, we were conscious of bringing in perhaps older teens, with an older character in the story. And then I guess the next generation that we wanted to bring in were people who remembered the original TV series and the book. But that always felt like a storytelling challenge, and in fact, just having the cool elements from Under the Mountain in there, rather than kind of content, or rather than sort of asides, funny asides for the grown-up sort of thing. And there's nothing worse than, you know, when you see a kid's film, the bad ones have kind of crap jokes. Hey, the grown-ups will enjoy this, which is just kind of painful. Whereas I think perhaps more sophisticated kids' films like Pixar, for example, are just working on every level because it's just really good storytelling, rather than you know, kind of bogus gags for the grown-ups.
And the kids for the family films are really, really popular. If you look at the top 20 programs, you know, last year 19 of those were family movies. So, you know, that shows that there is a future, I think, in that.
So where are we going with children's screen entertainment? You know, we see and edutainment as well, I guess. We seem to be in agreement that there has to be an internet dimension. You know, it can't just be what's on screen.
It's a bit like advertising. As educative TV makers, we've got two briefs: one to entertain and surprise and delight kids, and the other to sell a product which might be education or a message that the nation wants to tell kids. And our job is to do that and present it in a fun way that kids actually watch and don't change channel. So a bit like advertising, where you've got 30 seconds to sell a product in a fun way. We're selling a product in a fun way in half an hour. And our number one objective is to keep the kids watching and entertain our client, which is the kid, whilst delivering some messages that they want us to tell.
Spoken like a refugee from advertising itself.
Exactly.
I don't know whether to be encouraged or scared by that.
Be scared.
Well, we will finish there. Thank you very much to all of you. That is this discussion for now. After the break, a new book to help you find the words you really want.